Meeting is
Oh, yes. Oh,
got
it's
just
here.
press got it and don't leave the meeting. So yeah, we
Yep.
can begin.
Everyone, because this event is being live streamed on YouTube, will get a pop-up. Click on got it and don't leave the meeting, obviously, and we'll be starting now. So yes, welcome, a very warm welcome to everyone. So, as the Study Street Club is here with a productivity booster session on how to stay focused with Raunak Shah. He's here. A little bit description about him. He's an engineer, businessman, and a podcaster, a very good podcaster. He also has an interest in philosophy and the workings of the human mind, psychology, and all that stuff. Well, on his podcast, Ronny's Radio, he has had guests varying like from Sid Warrior to Ankur Warikoo and Prakhar from Prakhar ki Pravachan. I mean, we all know all these eminent personalities.
Right.
And so, a warm welcome to you, Raunak, and
Thank you.
the stage is yours.
Okay, awesome. So I was told that I'm supposed to talk to you guys about productivity, right? And initially I was surprised with the message. I'm like, why me? I don't think I'm anybody who should give gyan on how to be productive. And I think with my intention, with the slides that I've created, I just want hopefully to refine your perspective on how to think about productivity, just so that you can start thinking about it from in a different way, right? I have a few hacks which I'll give you I'll give you guys at the end of the session, but primarily this is not going to be any session where I'm saying just do this, do that, do this, and then you'll become more productive. I wish it was that simple, but I don't think it is. So with that, I'll just share the slides which I've made. Let me just start sharing. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, it's completely visible.
Okay, awesome. So this is what I call the art and science of productivity, right? And there's a reason why it's an art and there's a reason why it's a science. So I'll talk about how I think of the idea of productivity, how it has changed over time, and then a few artistic concepts which sound counterintuitive but actually work extremely interestingly, right? So let's start with the science part. Obviously, let's start with the first equation of productivity. Now, just before you get into any of these intricacies on what this entire formula is, I just want to share that most of the people think of the idea of productivity as how much work you can do, right? And I think that's fundamentally wrong. Like, just measuring anybody's just how like the capacity of how much work they can do is like measuring a horse versus a donkey, right? Maybe a donkey can lift more weight, but is he ever going to be as valuable as a horse? I don't think so, right? So it's the same way I think of this as well. And I think productivity, the broadest definition which can apply to students, entrepreneurs, any working professional, is about your relationship with time, right? What do you do with your time? And more importantly, what does your time do for you? This equation that you have with time, this equation that you have with 24 hours, because see, 24 hours is the constant, right? Everyone has that much time in the day. You wake up, you sleep, you eat, you have your basics, and then whatever you do with your time is will then determine how productive of an individual you are, right? So just keeping that in mind, I think this equation is quite simple to understand, which is your measure of productivity is your efficiency into your effectiveness. Efficiency, to be put very simply, I don't think it needs any explanation, is that it is what you do with your time. So suppose I take three people over here, I give you all a task to do. Whoever takes the least amount of time is the most efficient. Whoever takes the most amount of time is the least efficient. Nothing like very scientific or very hard to understand over here. In fact, efficiency is the one thing that our education system has trained us for, right? So one credit that we can give to all our schools, colleges, and all, as much as we don't like them, is that they've made us very efficient people, because efficiency stems right from the worker laborer industrial revolution aspect, right? So this is like fairly simple to understand. The next part is interesting, it's complicated and often skipped, which is effectiveness, right? Now effectiveness is in some ways is the opposite of efficiency, because in efficiency it's what you do with your time, right? So I gave you a task, and how much time do you take to execute the task? Effectiveness is what does your time do for you? Very important, right? What does, if you decide to do a certain task and let's say you complete that in how much ever time, how important was that task? Did that task really benefit you? Did it take you where you wanted to go? Did it do something for you or for something else? How important was the work that you did, and is it making the rest of your life easier, or is it not affecting you at all? What is the value of the work that you do, right? So to put very simply, think of it exactly like a relationship, right? If you're dating a partner and if you're constantly doing things for her or for him, is that a healthy relationship? No, it's not, right? And that's why most of us are simping for our time in very simple words. And it's true, right? We are slaves to the amount of time that we have in a day, but the time does not do enough for us. So the first thing to think of productivity is on both these tangents. What are you doing with your time? And then after you allocate the time, what is your time doing for you, right? So that's the first idea of the entire concept of like a productivity, which I wanted to share, right? Now getting into a few fundamentals of focus. Now that we spoke about this whole idea of efficiency versus effectiveness, I think another important thing to realize also is that a lot of conversations that we have on productivity, they enter a very broad level idea that, this is what you should do, wake up at this time, sleep at this time. And I don't think that's very applicable to everybody, right? I'm not going to be one of those old uncles who tells you to sleep on time, wake up on time, healthy, wealthy, wise, all of that stuff. Yeah, sure, it makes sense to a certain extent, but not necessary. If you like sleeping at 2 o'clock and waking up at 10 o'clock, fine, you do you, right? That's completely all right. But there are few fundamentals which I think it helps to keep in mind, right? So first we'll talk about efficiency, and we'll start by understanding the efficiency of the human body. Three things to keep in mind: the gut, which is your stomach, your movement cycle, and your sleep cycle. We'll start with the gut, right? Most people don't realize this, but the gut is the reason why it's called your second brain, is because it has more neural connections to the brain than the entire body combined. Just think of that for a second. Why will a stomach have so many nerve endings? Like, why is it so important? You're just eating food and you're digesting it. Why does the vagus nerve have so many connections to your brain and your microbiome? What is the requirement for it? Because your gut directly affects how you think, right? So what you put into your stomach has a very direct correlation with what you feel. So in very simple words, avoid fried food, avoid salty food, eat clean, don't have a lot of sugar, all the quintessential health stuff, right? But not from a perspective of, oh, I want to get a six pack, but from the perspective of, I want to be productive. So what you eat has a very direct impact on how your brain functions, what the performance level of your brain is. The next aspect is, of course, movement, right? We all know the importance of exercises. I'm not here to make you a fitness junkie, right? If you work out, if you like hitting the weights, more power to you. If not, go for a walk, do some form of yoga, just go for a run, but move your body. Your body requires movement. If you don't train your muscles, if you don't move your body, it's like in hunger. Like if you talk about hunger, we think of like very a basic stomach hunger, but hunger is way more than that. Every part of your body has its own hunger, its own needs that it wants to fulfill. And one need which we all have is to move, right? Our bodies are built for movement. So some form of movement in the day can massively increase your entire productivity. A lot of students go wrong over here. We assume that, oh, if I study 12 hours a day, and instead of that, if I take out 2 hours and I exercise for 1 hour and I rest for 1 hour, I'm getting 2 hours lesser. But the value of the remaining 10 hours is actually going to increase a lot more. So you'll be surprised that even after eliminating 2 hours from your study time, you'll actually get a lot more done, right? So invest time for exercising. Third is your, of course, sleep cycle. Just like I said, I'm not going to give you a fixed sleep cycle for everybody because everyone is different. But what I will say is make it regular. Your brain has an entire hormonal system whose job is to control your sleep cycle, right? And when you make your sleep cycle erratic, a lot of brain power is getting consumed into trying to manage that. But if you have a regular interval that every day I sleep at this time and approximately, and I have this time to wake up, there's more of your brain left for your work. So if you have an erratic sleep schedule, then your performance is going to decrease, right? Even if it's enough number of hours, even if it's 8 hours every day, but if it's like 2 o'clock one day, 12 o'clock the other day, 8 o'clock the other day, is going to get completely erratic. So these three are the fundamental biological principles of focus and of how to be more productive. Now getting into some more meta concepts, right? And this is where we enter the effectiveness space. Firstly, you have to ask your question that, are you doing too many things at once? It's a fair question to ask, right? Because we think that, like the more number of things we have, the more work we'll do, but very often it works against us. And the reason that happens is because if I tell you do one thing, you'll go and do it. If I tell you do two things, you will first have to decide in what order you do them, and then you'll execute them. Likewise for 2, for 3, for 4, for 5. But the minute I tell you to do 15 things, now the amount of energy that you have to invest in out of 15 things, first deciding which needs to be done first, which has to be done second, which is important, which is not important, a lot of your energy is going in all of these things. And what happens is, this is what leads to procrastination. Very often the reason we procrastinate is because we are giving ourselves so many things to do that it becomes more of an excuse. That if I tell you to do 100 things, you'll be like, I don't know which one to do. So you know what, I'm going to wait for motivation to come that I can do all 100 things. And like, just let's be honest, that never happens, right? This is just not how it works. So when you have a lot of things to do, all those things stop becoming productive and they work against you because they become excuses to not do anything at all. So if you're trying to do too many things at once, first reduce that, schedule them, and do one thing at one time. I'm not saying you have to like dedicate your entire life only to one thing. No, of course not. You can do multiple ideas, you can work on multiple things, but at one time, just do one thing. Next part is, which is little more meta, is whose choice is it, right? Is it really your choice? And this is something that school and colleges, they don't invest a lot of time in teaching us, because I mean, they are the ones who are taking our freedom away from us, like to a certain extent, right? But as you grow up into the world, you have to ask yourself the question, the work that I'm doing, is it given to me by somebody else? Is somebody else asking me to do them? Am I doing it for somebody else, or am I doing it out of my own choice, out of my own motivation? In fact, there's a very famous like researcher called Dan Pink, and it was his research that said that one of the biggest correlations with high motivation in people is autonomy, which means I chose to do something. If you can convince somebody that something is their choice, that is going to be the biggest motivator, because now they can never back down, because they themselves have decided that I want to do this, right? So there is no question of any lack of motivation or any distraction, anything. So whose choice is the task that you do? Is there something that you can change about it? Is there any way that you can make it more like it's your choice? Think about it, right? So this is the second factor. And the third factor is the most meta, and maybe might not apply to everybody because you guys are studying and you guys are still young, but eventually you have to ask yourself, what's the purpose behind what I'm doing? Is it meaningful? Is it important to me? Do I personally think it's important? Am I going to gain something out of it? Is somebody else going to gain something out of it? If I don't do the task, what cost is the world going to suffer? This is a very interesting idea, and it makes people think about their life very differently, right? I'm not asking you to just imagine your death or something. I'm not going to take this into that line, but just imagine you didn't exist in the world today, right? What cost will the world suffer? And if the cost is very high, then your motivation and your productivity is automatically going to be high, because you think it's important. So creating a sense of importance in what you're doing is one very underrated way to become more productive, right? And this is what nobody talks about, because this will require you to think of your work differently, will to choose a different kind of work, right? Because that is important. Like, you guys are not animals that you're just going to whip you all and start working. That's not the way you become more productive. It might be the way you become more efficient, but that's not going to help you in overall productivity, right? So this is extremely important. Too many things at once. Whose choice is it? And is it genuinely important to you? Is it meaningful to you? Right now, going down to the end of my little discourse, which is 3 things that I've learned, which are very counterintuitive. They're very counterintuitive, but they work extremely well. And I call them hacks. They're actually not hacks. They're just concepts to understand and to keep in mind if you want to be more productive, right? First, number 1 is boredom. See, how many of us want our lives to be interesting? We all want to travel. We all want to party. We want to get drunk. We want to smoke. We want to have all sorts of experiences. And that's absolutely all right. I don't think there's anything wrong in that. But the reality is that if you want to live a very productive life in terms of your work and your career, boredom is the key, right? Routines, schedules, calendars, batching work, automating decisions. These are extremely boring things to do. Who likes it, right? How many of us actually use a Google Calendar as our Bible? Very few people do that. And the reason we do it is not because we don't have motivation, but because the idea of, oh, I have to know exactly what I'm going to do for the rest of the week on a Sunday night makes your life seem like a machine. No, it makes your life seem very boring. But that is the key to how to be more productive, because just like I mentioned earlier, the less time your brain has to invest in trying to decide what needs to be done, the more space or the more bandwidth it has to execute on what needs to be done. So routines, schedules, calendars, and batching your work makes all of this process easier. You know that these many tasks have to be done at this time. So when you wake up in the morning, 10 o'clock, open your calendar, this is the work, fut, done, finished. All your mental energy is devoted into executing the task, right? No energy is spent on trying to decide what needs to be done, because that has already been done before. So that is the first hack, and it is frustrating to execute, but it will completely change your productivity just by putting this into action. Let yourself be a little boring. Boredom is very, very underrated. And the second one is even more counterintuitive, which is irrelevance, right? A lot of times we are the biggest obstacles in our own productivity. And the reason why I mean that, I don't mean that in saying that you are unproductive, but if your work is ultimately limited only to your personal capacity, you will never be able to break out of that chain. A lot of times, freelancers who try to become entrepreneurs, they get stuck in this loop because they're used to doing all the work themselves. But once you shift out of that mentality, you have to learn how to delegate things, right? A lot of it is also eliminating. When you think very critically, at least I think you should do this exercise every month or so, when you just take all the work that you've done in a week or in a month and ask yourself, was this really necessary? Was it really important? Or I just think it's important because I feel that I have to do it, right? Ask yourself this question, and you might not always be very happy with the answer. So eliminate work that's not required. Outsource work wherever it's possible, either to another human being or to software or to some other tool. A lot of options are there. Create systems that don't require you to be there, because once you create a system of work that can execute without you, now that has gone out of your personal productivity space, and now you can use that time to create another system. And that's generally how businesses grow, how they scale, how any organization scales, is using systems, right? So if you can convert yourself into a micro organization in whichever work that you do, either you're studying for a JEE exam, or you're studying for your college, or you're applying for anything, it doesn't matter. If you can think of yourself like a business, it will completely change your mind, because you start thinking in systems, right? And the third, and probably the weirdest one of all, is honesty. And honesty seems like a weird tip to give when you're trying to be productive, right? Because this is not like it's not a session on morality, but honesty in terms of, be honest with what work do you really want to do, what time works best for you, who do you like working with, who do you not like working with, do you prefer working alone, do you prefer working in a team, where do you like working, from home, from office, from some other place. Learn to negotiate your work life. A lot of us get settled with whatever is given to us, and then we crib about it, saying that, oh, this is why I'm not productive, or this is why I can't do more. But have you questioned it? Have you gone and tried to do something different? Have you even attempted it? I'm not going to give you this utopic dream that everybody will give you everything that you want in life. No, of course not. It's the real world, right? There's some things that your boss will not allow you. There's some things that your teachers and your college will not allow you to do. But have you tried to negotiate? Have you tried to work out some schedule somewhere down the line? Just learn how to give your own choice, your own inner feelings some value. We often eliminate feelings and say that we just have to be an emotionless machine. No, you can't do that. Emotions are a part of any activity, right? Emotion is the energy of motion, is the energy behind any motion. So pay attention to your emotions, pay attention to how you feel when you do certain kinds of work and when you don't do certain kinds of work, and be honest with yourself. Once you start doing that, you'll start thinking of all of your work very, very differently, and hopefully that will make a change in your life, right? So these were the few things that I wanted to share with you. I hope this changed your idea on how you think of productivity, and now we can get into questions.
Yes, Dan, that was a nice talk, and that presentation was so informative. I believe those hacks will definitely help us focus better and have more productivity. So
Sure.
I'm sure the people in the audience must have some questions or
Okay.
doubts. Please raise your hands, everyone, and we will give you permission to unmute your mic, and then you can ask your questions directly to him. Yes, Kailash.
Yeah, actually, this has been a great session. But no matter what, how much emphasis we give for such tips, again, we tend to make wrong with the first step. So, can you give any tips for what should be our first idea to start a work?
To start work?
Yeah, I mean,
So
when we start it, I think we can get some motivation to continue. So, how can we get that starting force to, you know, get into doing?
I didn't get your question. So is your question, what is the first step that I need to do to increase my productivity, or exactly what first step are you looking at?
I mean, what should be the mindset to start doing a work right itself?
Okay, start doing any work.
Yeah.
Okay, so first thing, I think the first step to doing any work is actually starts the day before that, right? That why did you decide doing that work? Like, what was your reason to do it, right? It seems very mundane, and I understand that because it's not a habit for us to do it, right? But as you grow up out of your school, this becomes very important, and this is what actually differentiates like people who get enslaved into their work life as compared to people who have a new path for themselves, right? Ask yourself, why are you doing the work that you're doing? Just to know that I'm not saying every time it's going to be something mind-blowing or you're going to change the world every day. No, that's not true. It's not real. But why are you doing it? Is there any importance? Even if you're writing one line of code, just knowing that this line of code is going to have this impact will do two things. One is, it will increase your motivation, so you won't feel burned out. You won't feel like, I don't want to do this, I don't feel like doing it, and I'm not interested in all of this. that it'll eliminate that. And secondly, I think one aspect which I didn't involve in this session, because then that becomes too complicated, is also metrics, right? How do you measure yourself? We often forget to measure ourselves, because in school and college we are measured by somebody else, that okay, this many marks on 100, so he's ranked number 1, he's ranked number 10, whatever, some random stuff, right, which is not in our control. But when you decide your work, it's not always in your interest. I mean, if you have a good boss or a good mentor, then you're lucky, but not, you might not always have that. So sometimes just knowing that okay, if I do this work, this is the larger impact that this is supposed to have, you can know whether it occurred or no, right? And this applies to everything. It can apply to studying for an exam also, it can apply to freelancing also, it can apply to your business also, any small activity also. Just have that question in mind, that why am I doing it, and what difference is it going to make to something else, right? So it'll keep your motivation high, and it'll help you to learn from your metrics also, so you'll know whether those actual metrics are being passed or no. Otherwise, it's very easy to keep doing the same thing over and over again and get the same result, and then just unnecessarily be like extremely disheartened, saying that oh, I'm a loser, or I can't do this. And we don't want all of that. So I think like this is one thing that might help you.
Yeah, I think it's great. And can you share some more valuable points that you have got from Mr. Ankur Value,
From
Uncle Ankur Warikoo?
Ankur Warikoo. Some points that I've got from him, I think the points that I have from him are the ones that he shared on social media itself, right? And everything. I mean, that podcast was like start to end record. I didn't edit it at all. I just uploaded it, because with Ankur Warikoo, there's no need to editing. Like there's really no need to edit. So whatever I know from him is what you guys know. So it's exactly the same, right? I don't think there's anything different, but a lot of what I shared from on my screen also is from him only. So this entire session in a way was a lot of the things that I've learned from his productivity things, and his all the content that he shares basically on like on time management and stuff, for sure.
Any specific tips just for students?
Just for students, let me think. It's a long time since I think I can consider myself to be a student. But okay, so student in terms of what, like school or college? Because that also makes a bit of a difference.
High school.
High school. See, high school you don't really have a lot of options, right? So don't spend time in cribbing, don't spend time in complaining. I see a lot of that also happening, because it's not in your control. If you were in college, I would recommend differently, right? There you can complain because it is under your control, but in high school it's definitely not. So just take the work like which you need to do. And I think, I'm assuming a lot of you guys are from either a science background or a commerce background. A lot of them, a mistake that I see a lot of people making is they don't focus on concepts, right? See, ultimately, as much as people say, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but the fact is, regardless of what teachers say, hard work is not all that matters, right? It's not the hardest working person who gets the most results. That's what they want you to believe, because they're just trying to make you work harder, but it's not true. Intelligence and talent, they matter a lot. It's just that if you say it out loud in public, it doesn't appeal to everybody, so then everybody doesn't become happy and motivated. So they are trying to please everybody. I'm not here to please anybody, right? So intelligence and talent matters a lot. So use your energy and effort in trying to see if you can increase that or no. And intelligence can be increased, by the way. It's not constant. It starts to become constant only at the age of 25. I think it's called cognitive fluidity or something. I forgot the term, but that it gets crystallized only at 25. So at your age, there is absolutely a lot of scope for improvement. So whatever small things that you're doing, right, try to invest energy in becoming more intelligent. And this especially applies. So even I have attempted my JEE, so I know that entire line of studies, right? Especially for any JEE aspirants, I would definitely say invest time in understanding concepts and logic and becoming smarter, because you are competing with the smartest people in the country. You're not just competing with the hardest working people in the country, right? So yeah, for high school students, be smart, and that smartness also will help you even later on in college, because in college it will help you to do things very quickly, not have to study for exams, and then who knows, maybe with extra time you can start a startup, right? A lot of that happens in any engineering college. So be smart, focus on intelligence, not just on hard work. That's what I would say.
What since you talked about for talent and intelligence, right? So what according to you is the definition of talent? Because I mean, this is the saying, right? Like for everyone, so everyone has their own talent, right?
Right.
And yeah, and you just said that hard work is just to please stuff, right? And then you
Correct.
need to work on, increasing your talent or intelligence. So what, according to you, is the definition of talent? And how
Okay.
should one invest time in, building stuff, building their talent up? So yeah.
Okay, so by talent over here in this narrow perspective, since we're not talking about singing and dancing and music, in this perspective, talent is primarily aptitude. Like there are always things that we have which come easily to us. And if something comes easily to you in the first, okay, I'll give you an example of this. Okay, like it's a very extremely weird example. Let's say that you go with like a group of your friends and you've never had sushi in your life. Like you and all of your friends have never had sushi. All of a sudden, you guys all try it. Everyone liked it a little bit, but you loved sushi. Like you loved it. You fell in love with the dish. It became your favorite dish, right? Now, what does that mean? That means you and sushi somewhere fit with each other. It fits your taste palette, right? So the same thing applies even when you're trying to learn something, right? Even with coding or with math or physics, some things you just pick up very fast. We don't know why that happens, and honestly, that's not important. The point is, it happened easily. Now, that is an indication of talent, right? It doesn't mean that you're the most talented person, but it just means that this thing is easy for you. So it's a space to venture in, right? If something has come easily to you without a lot of effort, that means somewhere down the line it is playing, it is a game that you can play very well. So that is what I mean by talent over here.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's take times to, figure out what you actually are good at, and what fits your, work of, like what you actually want to do. So I mean, let's say we are taking a perspective of high school, right? Like when we were in J, when we were given J and all that, high school 11 and 12, we were, in that, I would say we were in that type of a, environment where basically we were not exploring stuff,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So because we were just, grinding for, just get those marks in that competitive exam, and then we just get into some college, right?
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Right.
how someone at that time should be exploring on, the stuff they can actually build upon. And, because people, tend to not figure out what they're actually good at that point of time. So,
Yeah. So unfortunately, that is a problem of India, bro. It's very easy for me to give you random advice, but in high school, it's difficult because you don't have time. See, you don't have any time, right? So I would, I don't think it's a fair proposition, especially for science students, because there's really no time. I can't tell you to explore. I mean, you don't have energy to explore. Forget about anything else,
yeah,
right? So don't you don't have to start exploring like at such a young age. It's different for like American schools and all because their schooling works differently, right? What I would rather say is focus on generalized skills. Learn how to speak, just learn how to write, learn how to like just consume good content, read books if you get time, just do very general things because that will build a base layer on bro. I'll be very honest, okay? In any Indian engineering college, if you can speak English fluently, you already have an advantage over so many people. And it is unfair, it feels very bad to say, but it's true, right? So imagine anyone who didn't know English very well, if they focused on their communication skills in the 11th and 12th without any aim, they'll have infinitely more time in college, and then there you can explore, there you can actually start a company, right? Don't try to start a company when you're 16. I don't think, I mean, people do it, I know people who've done it, but not the best idea for everybody, right? Build general skills which will give you leverage. Even for, okay, for example, if you know you're going to be an engineer and you learn computer science, just basics of computer science. Now 2 years of even half an hour of computer science every day in your high school, massive advantage after you enter engineering college. So then there you have extra time, go do whatever you want, right? So be strategic and just focus on trying to gain maximum leverage in your college life, and then there explore. Don't try to explore in high school itself. Okay,
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Thanks
okay,
for that.
awesome. Jay Kishan is there and Kailash Chaudhary is there, whoever wants to go.
Yes, Jagishan, you can go ahead and mute. You're muted, Jagishan.
Yes, sir. My name is Jagishan. I am from Raipur, Chhattisgarh, sir.
Okay.
Actually, first of all, I want to tell you about my education background. I studied from Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya, then graduated from government college. Then finally, I realized I should do something in computer science. Well, it's my long time realization, but I finally got to do it, and I completed my master's degree, MSc, in computer science. Then I done so many mistakes in my life that I regret. And Right now, I'm looking for opportunity for teaching, and when I go and when I go for teaching field and give some interview for home tuition, I realize that I don't have any communication skills, and so many knowledge are I don't have much knowledge for it, and just now I'm starting to improve that. I want some suggestions, some method to how to improve myself, and I actually in my area I don't find some suitable job for computer science students. I try to learn so many languages, but suddenly due to COVID, I didn't get chance to learn much things. Like most of the time I spend in my home, and teachers are not half of the time they try to understand technology, and I couldn't learn much better. I don't get any chance, sir. So right now, can you help me with that, sir?
Okay, fine. See, now there are two things over here. All right. Firstly, it's good that you've identified that
Yes, sir.
teaching is one thing.
Yes,
I mean, like knowing something is one thing, and teaching is a very different thing. And this is like a general thing that a lot of people don't get. Just because you are good at something does not mean you can teach somebody. Like I don't think Roger Federer will be the best tennis coach in the world. He might be the best player, but he's not the best coach, right? So to teach something, to explain something to
yes,
somebody else is a very different skill. It's good that you've identified that, and now you have to build it, right? This is a very
yes, sir.
different domain from what my expertise is, so don't take my word for it. The learning part, you'll have to sort of learn on your own. If there are no opportunities around you, take advantage of the internet, go to online courses. You've done your MSc, so I'm sure you'll have some resources and some basic foundation skill you have to learn on your own. If there are no opportunities to for somebody else to teach you, then I'm not someone who can advise you on that. You'll have to go to somebody else. The communication skills part is definitely very, very important. Now, first and foremost, I think the way to practice, the way to get better is to I really think this is not just for you, but this is for anybody who ever wants to teach something to anybody else, or who wants to be in any position to talk to people. You should start, I think, recording videos, right? And I'm not telling people to be a YouTuber. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. That's up to you if you want to be one, or you don't want to be one. But I've said this earlier also on my videos. Most important thing is not practice, it's feedback, right? If you speak, for example, if I'm talking to you, Jay, and you are also talking to me, right? So
Yeah.
I'm giving you feedback about how you're talking, and you are giving me feedback on how I'm talking. Now the problem is, are you able to interpret feedback? No. Am I able to interpret feedback? Yeah. So tomorrow I'll get better, and you'll remain the same. Now imagine this happening with everybody you speak to: your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your boss, your employee, your teacher, your student, everybody in one day, how many ever people you speak to. Now this compounds over time. This is the only way to improve your speaking skills, reading skills, writing skills, whatever it is. It starts with feedback, right? Now, because you are from a city where I can understand you might not have other people who can help you
Yes.
learn, right? Record yourself. Simple. Sometimes you don't even need somebody else. I'm telling you, right? It's very difficult to record. I understand that. Your first 3 videos are the hardest to record, but do it. Get done with it. Learn. And if you want to teach something to somebody, just assume that koi hai meeting mein. Just assume that, like, I'm having a student across and I'm teaching, and teach it to the video camera, right? It is difficult. It
Yes,
is
yes.
way harder, but do it. And then imagine that if this was a student, would they enjoy or no? You'll have to do that mock simulation for yourself. But if you get into the habit, see, एक दो हफ्ते लगेंगे, आपको थोड़ा अजीब लगेगा. एक दो हफ्ते के बाद it'll be very normal to you, right? For you, it'll be your student. Like, make your camera your student, and eventually you will become so good that you won't even realize. And I'll just share something else which I've learned. Anybody who can teach a camera is significantly way better than anybody who can only teach a classroom. And a clear example is, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but how many have those teachers in school and colleges who say, students, please on your cameras, I can't teach in front of a blank screen. वो क्यों होता है? क्योंकि उनको आदत नहीं है कैमरा को सिखाने की. But any YouTuber will never say that. I can teach, even if all your videos are off, I can teach you all, because I'm not afraid of the camera, right? I can speak in front of the camera. But most college teachers, उनका practice नहीं है वो करने को. So that's why they have to make the students say, please on your cameras, right? So I'm not making fun of them, but I'm saying it in a very genuine perspective, that make your camera your student and you will become a far more skilled teacher.
Sir, I want to say something. Actually, I just tried your suggestion already, sir. When I give some interview, I realize that I don't have much conversation skills. I open my camera and record my videos. I just pick some random topics which I get asked in interview. Some physics questions. I just record myself while explaining, and I record 3 videos exactly. And I found very difficult, very hard, sir. And just ask my one of the teacher who used to teach us in online classes. Then she says that you should imagine the camera as a student and don't think that someone judge you.
Exactly.
Just you are the person full of knowledge, and in the camera is know nothing about the subject. You need to teach whatever you know.
Correct.
And I try and I got something. I improved something myself and realized that it's a good way, and I want to keep doing it.
Perfect. Yeah, I think you're on the right track. But what I would also say is don't just record yourself, also edit it. I think editing is very important, right? Agar record kiya to achhi baat hai, but go back and watch it. And assume that this has to go to for some competition, hypothetically, right? And this is where podcasting is also a very big advantage. I think somebody asked this in the chat also. If I record my conversation, I will edit the parts that I don't like. Now, when in my next conversation, I automatically know what I don't have to repeat, right? So when you record a video for teaching, edit parts that you think that, अच्छा, ये जब मैंने सिखाया था तो ये part extra था, या फिर ये part मैंने miss out किया था. That will register in your brain. After it registers, over time it will become a part of you, and the next time you won't repeat the mistake. See, slowly, ultimately, any improvement is what? It's about eliminating mistakes. कि अगर आज 10 mistake कर रहे हो तो कर सिर्फ 8 करो, उसके बाद 6, उसके बाद 4, उसके बाद 2, उसके बाद 1 भी नहीं होगा, right? 10 में से 1 नहीं होगा ना सीधा. So incrementally keep eliminating mistakes and then you'll get better, right? So I think that's it.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Kailash and Prajwal are there. Whoever can go.
What do you suggest to a high school student who wants to freelance?
High school student who wants to freelance. What are you studying, first of all? Is it feasible? Like do you have the time investment? Is my first question. Kailash, is that you? Who was the one who asked the question?
It was Kailash, I believe.
Okay. Okay. So I'll answer it in like in both perspectives. One, assuming that you have the time, and the second, assuming that you don't have the time. See, first and foremost.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem with time availability.
Okay, fine. So then you want to start, right? I would say start with a skill which is like tough to master, like computer science, right? I would say maybe you can start with front-end development, because from what I've seen, like if you start with front-end, you can get to the point of being a freelancer a little faster than a back-end job, right? In my opinion. So start with a skill which is tough to learn, and learn to validate yourself with your, though at least this is my opinion, that at the age of 16, I don't think like money should be your goal. You're too young for it. You will obviously earn money as a freelancer, of course. No, I'm not saying work for free, but it should not be the ultimate goal that I just want to become rich. No, not necessarily. You still have time for that, right? So what you should do is you should learn to freelance as a way to validate your skill, because the biggest advantage that you want to learn, you want to start freelancing in high school, is that you have a lot of time at your hand, right? So start freelancing and start getting projects as a way to validate what you're learning, right? So learn a tough skill, learn incrementally, and use money only to validate what you're learning. Don't invest time in becoming I mean, I have nothing against the skill, but at the age of 16, if you're a freelancer who's a copywriter or a video editor or a designer, it's not a bad thing. You can make money, but you have to also think like what is the long-term potential, because at the age of 16, like if you're freelancing, if you take a 10-year horizon, after 10 years you still be only 26, which is still the starting of your life, right? So you have to take a 10-year horizon for any skill. So I would say at this point, we don't know the potential like of crypto, but I would say learn how to code. And if you already know how to code well, learn how to code in sync with something to do with crypto, or like anything in the entire blockchain space, because there's no guarantee that it will be valuable in the future, but if it is valuable, then anybody who has time, who's invested a lot of time in learning that skill, has a huge advantage. So learn a skill that is inherently valuable, and use freelancing just as a way to validate what you're learning, not directly that acha, I'll get a big client and I'll make a lot of money. No, not right now maybe, but I just want to know that what I'm learning is actually valuable or no. So either I would say programming, or if you can enter the domain of blockchain, then nothing like it.
Yeah, I think that's good. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, Prajwal, we have he's raised.
Thank you, Ronak, for the wonderful insights you have given so far.
You're welcome.
Question is, if you don't have any idea for starting up, but you feel that 10 years down the line you are not willing to work in any of the organization we have in the market, but eventually you feel that you have to start a company or work in a field individually and enhance the community individually. So what made you think like podcast is a kind of thing you will work on for a longer period of time, and how this idea stuck into your mind at the beginning while starting the company you are into?
Okay. So I think there are two questions over here which are quite different, right? Firstly, I'll answer the initial question saying that if you don't want to work for somebody else, then what do you do? I would say, again, no offense to anyone, but not wanting to work for somebody else is the worst reason on why you should try to start your own company. Because anyone who's been an actual entrepreneur will know that when you start, you have to listen to your customers, you have to listen to your employees, you have to listen to your investors, you have to listen to all the stakeholders. You are literally, it's very difficult, right? And it's not as glamorous, or it's not as, oh, I can be my own boss. No, that is not true at all. So if that is your reason for starting a startup, then just I would say rethink that. And especially if you don't have an idea, then all the more you should rethink this, right? I think it's an individual makes a business, and a business creates an entrepreneur. It's not that you create your own self to be an entrepreneur and then you'll create a business. That does not work always, and you get stuck very easily into that identity of an entrepreneur before you started a business. So I would say just be a little mindful of that. And secondly, you asked me about my idea starting a podcast. My idea was never to monetize. It still is not. It's just a weekend thing for me. And I was into podcasts since a very long time, always been listening. Still, I wake up every morning and listen to one podcast every single day, at least for half an hour, 1 hour. So it's been very close to me as a piece of content, and I wanted to start one on my own, right? Always. So then I got time, and then I decided to just take the plunge, and then one thing just led to the other. And for me, my internal metric was I wanted to always network with the best of the best. Like, that was always my internal KPI. And in some ways I have done that, in some ways I still have a long way to go, but that was one of the reasons why I started. So for me, monetization was not on the mind at all. And from what I know about the industry of podcasts, if you're going purely from the point of trying to monetize, it's not the best idea. I think there are other ways to monetize which make a lot more sense, because the podcasting market is very skewed. So 99% of the attention goes to 1% of podcasters, right? And the remaining 99% are fighting for that 1% of attention. So that's just the reality. And it's not about your skill. It does not mean that you're a bad podcaster, right? It's just a different market. You have to be a celebrity. You have to be somebody who people are interested in. It's not enough to get interesting people. That is what I have learned, right? So that's why I think just be careful. If you want to be a podcaster, nothing like it, but don't do it with any expectations. Do it just with the ability to have a conversation with somebody who would have otherwise not even know that you existed. That's it. That's how I would put it. All right. I hope that answers your question. We have Mohammed, who's also raised his hand.
Mohammed, you can unmute yourself. I've sent you an invite to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes.
So thank you, sir, for first of all allowing me. So, sir, I have a couple of questions. Can you please answer them all? Like three.
Okay.
First one is, I'm in 9th grade currently. I'm 15 years old.
Okay.
So I listen to podcasts. So I'm thinking to start my own podcast alongside studies. But my parents are telling do after SLC 10th standard.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Yeah, I think
What
your
would be
parents are
the
right. I think in this case your parents are right. I'll tell you why. Not because your exams are the most important thing, but because I don't think right now is the right age for you to start a podcast. One is because, see, inevitably when you're young, your target audience is always you, because you don't have the perspective of the market. You're too young for that, right? So you think that everybody's like you. It's what all teenagers feel, right? That everyone is like us, or like me rather. Right now, how many 15-year-olds are listening to podcasts? I don't think in India that's a very high thing. So you are an exception. I was also not listening to podcasts when I was 15, right? So it's the size of the market which you're trying to reach is also less. And secondly, how much time, if you want to stick with the podcast, see, like the reason why I'm saying no is because if you start right now and then exams, they enter the way and you lose motivation, you will always feel like that you were a bad podcaster. And at such a young age, it's not good to have this belief. So I would say start when you can continue. Don't start just for the sake of it, just randomly, and then stop, right? Start when you think that it is sustainable for you to invest at least on a very minimalistic scale. I mean, I have the most minimalistic podcast because the video quality is not good, the camera is horrible, like I'm a mess, right, in these things. So even still it takes around 4 to 5 hours a week to arrange everything and to reach out to people and all of that, right? So if you can invest that amount of time on a consistent basis, then you go ahead with it. And also at the age of 15, like, a lot of logistical reasons are also there. How many other people will agree to listen and have a conversation with someone of your age? So it's another perspective. So I would say in this case your parents are right. Wait for some time and then start it. It's not running away anywhere.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
One more thing. Yeah. One more thing. My parents are against reading other books in my school days. So what shall I do?
Why are they against reading it?
They think I'll lose interest in my syllabus books.
Has that happened? After you started reading books, has your marks reduced?
No, I don't remember because recently my first periodic test over. They have not seen my these results, but my parents are predicting.
So let's see what happens. See, at this age, it's natural for your parents to think that they know what's best for you, right? So see what happens. If you can prove to them that your marks have not reduced even after reading books, then go ahead with it. See, honestly, I don't think your parents are right about this. If I had a child, I would definitely want him to read other books, but not at the cost of his marks suffering. That is also there. And if it's important for your parents, it's important for your parents. I'm nobody to say that it's not important, right? So just prove it to them. Make sure that you start reading books, and in one semester or in one test, show it to them that you still scored well. And if you can prove it that it's not affecting your studies, then I don't think they'll have an issue with it. That's it. But don't invest time in convincing. It's a waste of time, because Indian parents don't get convinced by like their child even when they're 23. So 15 is not happening, right? So the proof will be your actions only. So just make sure that your marks don't reduce, and I don't think they'll have a problem with it then.
Somebody asked in the chat that what type of books I like to read. I have not read that book. I have read like 1-2 books only. I bought 3, but my parents hide both 3 books. They hide the books. I like to read novels and I like to read self-help books. So one more question, sir. I think with studies I should develop a skill, Photoshop skill, and freelance on Instagram by making fan arts of others celebrities and writing in my profile that for artwork to get your photos edited by me, please mail me. So I'm thinking to freelance through it alongside my studies. So
Why do you
what
want
do
to
you think?
freelance? Why do you want to? Because at the moment you haven't built the skill of Photoshop, and you've already decided that you want to make fan art for creators, right? So why do you want to make fan art? What is your reason for making?
First of all, I am interested in Photoshop.
Okay.
I want to make fan arts. And second is a little bit money, 20-30 rupees.
Okay. See, what I would say is learn the skill of Photoshop. I'm not denying that. It's a skill. You can learn it. If you enjoy doing it, learn it. Don't get into fan art or any kind of freelancing right now for the same reason which I mentioned earlier, that you're still very young. And if you want to learn, a skill, learn a tough skill, right? So use your mental energy in trying to learn something which has a high barrier of entry. The reason why I'm saying that is, okay, so I'm sure you guys know what Canva is, no? Everyone has now started using Canva. Do you know, just by the use of Canva, the amount of jobs that used to go to freelancers earlier has tremendously reduced, simply because of the of the tool of Canva. So I'm not saying that Photoshop as a skill is not valuable. It's valuable, but it's reached its peak in terms of what it can do and what it can't do. There are other domains which are still at its entry point, which have a long way to go in terms of how much potential you can extract out of it, right? So if you use Photoshop right now tell me, after 10 years, do you like, are you sure that there's no other tool which will make it easier to use? Because Canva marketed itself exactly as the Photoshop for people who don't know how to use Photoshop, and that's exactly how it works, right? So there are tools which are trying to replace tough things every day, which are always coming out. So it's not worth your, and now at the age of 15, your time is more valuable. I'm assuming that if in case you are the youngest person in this whole community, your time is the most valuable than anybody else's, because your brain is the most plastic. So right now it's the easiest for you to learn a tough skill. So what I would say is, learn something that's difficult. Find one thing which is like tough to learn and that you're interested in. I won't even force you into programming, because you might not like that, though I think it's still very important. But learn, just ask yourself, is it difficult? Is it really tough? Then learn it, right? And don't keep the idea of freelancing as the end goal in your mind right now. You can do that later on. But I think what people also don't realize about freelancing is that it's a lot about branding. This is what Varun Maya also says so many times, right? It's not just about your skill. It's not like a 9 to 5 job. The way you brand yourself, the way you communicate is very important on how much money you can charge, because it's every deal is a negotiation. So at that point of time, when you want to really make money, it's not that you'll start right now and then every day you start making more money. If you work on your skills, you work on your at the same time on your interpersonal communication skills, all of a sudden after you enter college at the age of 17, you'll be making a lot of money, and very easily, right? So you don't need to worry about money now. You will for sure make a lot of money in the future, but right now learn something that's tough. That's what I would say. Not Photoshop.
Can you give some suggestion on what I'm supposed to learn?
Programming, that's my always suggestion. Some form of coding is the future. I think it's extremely important. A lot of resources are there to learn. I would really recommend to learn how to code.
One thing, like, since you said about designing, right?
Hmm.
Like Mohammed, you said about designing, and you are interested in Photoshop. But yeah, yeah, you have Photoshop and you want to do something in that. Maybe not just constrict yourself towards one thing. Maybe you can take it in a broader perspective. Like there are stuff in designing also.
Yeah,
You have UI, UX, you have graphical art, you have art
exactly.
design. So maybe you can target one of those and then learn a tool which does that for you, and that will get you more, more perspective on how you can make money out of it.
Exactly.
So
I think there are a lot of opportunities even in design, but I still feel the barrier to entry is very less. So I would still say learn something which has a high barrier to entry, because see how many people at the age of 15 are even asking this question. I was never asking a question like that at the age of 15. So the fact that you started early, take advantage of it. No, why you don't unnecessary? I mean, if you learn any skill right now, in 3 years, you'll be a master of it. So if you're going to anyway be a master, then be a master of something that's difficult. So then you can relax, afterwards, and then you can maybe even explore entrepreneurship, maybe even explore different things which are way harder, right? So understand this idea of barrier to entry very well. Have something that is a high barrier to entry, and then try to focus on it. And also, I mean, since a lot of your questions were also on how to convince your parents, the minute you learn programming, the starting salary for you itself, even without college, will be very high. So that's the first step to convincing your parents, right? You can prove to them that you can make money. That's what all Indian parents ultimately want. So that will help you in that also. Photoshop might not help you with that.
Sir, one more thing.
Hmm.
Sir, I'm interested in writing stories. I've thought something. I'm also interested in filmmaking, but first, is it writing is easy? So
You're on mute. You've gone on mute. Is he there?
It looks like he left, I guess. Oh.
We got a question from the chat. Can you tell, like, when you were 16, what you actually wanted to do, and what you feel you have developed down the line?
When I was
Like,
16, I don't even remember what I was doing when I was 16. My life has completely changed 3 times since that time. So 16, though, it'll take a very long time for me even to think. But at the age of 16, I was in my 11th grade. So I was also in the whole JEE ka rut. That was my sole focus. And other than that, I didn't really think of much. For me, IIT was not that important in terms of job and all, because I wanted to like continue my family business. So it was not about that. But it was just the whole competitive streak. I was insanely competitive as a kid. When I entered a room, I needed to know that I was the best, right? And I was in the process of eliminating that requirement. So I think that was my headspace when I was 16, but I was nowhere close to where you guys are today. So don't worry about that.
I mean, it's amazing to see people asking about this stuff right now, and
Yeah,
we still
absolutely.
figuring out what you want to do, right?
100%. 100%. Is Mohammed back, or is he still out?
I think he left. Yep,
Okay.
he's not back.
Are there any other questions?
I guess you can wrap it up.
Cool.
Yes. Well,
any last tips for someone who wants to be successful?
There's one person, Ganguly. You can mute yourself.
Right.
Hello sir, I just want to ask a question. Let's just say you have a idea about agricultural sector, and which have सर मैं हिंदी में कंटिन्यू हो सकता हूँ?
बोलो हिंदी में.
सर जैसे सर एग्रीकल्चरल सेक्टर में सर मेरे को पता है कि बहुत सारे डेफिशिएंसी है, हर चीज में कुछ नहीं कुछ थोड़ा इनोवेशन करेंगे, बहुत सारी इनएफिशिएंसी है. सर जैसे मैं आपको पंजाब के बारे में बता देता हूँ सर. वहाँ पे जो पेस्टिसाइड वाला है सर, उसका बहुत खराब टाइप का सीन हो चुका है. क्या होता है सर कि क्रॉप में जैसे सर वो पेस्टिसाइड इंसेक्टिसाइड जैसे यूज करते हैं, उनसे क्या होता है कुछ जनरेशन के बाद इंसेक्ट में कोई सही एवोल्यूशन के बाद क्या होता है कि कोई इंसेक्ट हो जाता है, उसके लिए ज्यादा पेस्टिसाइड चाहिए होता है उसको खत्म करने के लिए. तो एक ऐसा लेवल आ चुका है सर कि इसके बाद ये अनसस्टेनेबल है, हमको पता चल गया. क्योंकि एक ऐसा लेवल आएगा कि उसके बाद इंसेक्ट तो मरेगा ही मरेगा, उसके बाद आदमी भी मरने लग जाएगा. एक लेवल पे कोई बीमारी हो जाएगी, कैंसर वैंसर. तो सर वहां पे आ चुका है सर. आप पंजाब के स्टेट देखेंगे तो एक कोई ऐसे टाइप का जिला है कि आधे से ज्यादा लोग कैंसर से पीड़ित है सर.
ठीक है. तो ये तो इसका प्रॉब्लम हो गया ना, ये इसका डेफिशिएंसी हो गया. अभी मुझे 2 चीजें बताओ. एक तो आपको ये कैसे मालूम पड़ा कि ये इश्यू है, और दूसरी चीज उसका सोल्यूशन क्या है. फिर अगर ये प्रॉब्लम है तो उसका सोल्यूशन क्या है, और अभी तक क्यों किसी ने कुछ इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं किया.
हेलो सर. हाँ सर, मैंने सर 1-2 वीडियो देखी थी सर. एक मैम थी सर, उन्होंने बताया था कि जो वीट फार्मिंग है इंडिया में वो बहुत खराब कर चुका है हमारे. उसमें न्यूट्रिएंट बहुत कम होते हैं. साथ में वीट फार्मिंग न्यूट्रिएंट बहुत कम ही होती है, और साथ में सरकार इसको इंसेंटिवाइज कर रही है बहुत ज्यादा. क्योंकि एमएसपी दे के बहुत ज्यादा इंसेंटिवाइज कर देती है, जिससे इसमें पानी का भी ज्यादा यूज होता है. और साथ में ये वो क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न को चेंज नहीं करते का. जैसे अगर आपने मेरे को 100 रुपए दिए प्रति क्विंटल के लिए, तो सरकार इसको इंसेंटिवाइज कर रही है, बाकी दूसरे वाले क्रॉप को नहीं कर रही है. जबकि तो इससे पानी भी कम हो रहा है सर, और इसमें बीमारी भी बढ़ने की ज्यादा तरीके है सर. तो एक इंस्टीट्यूशनल टाइप का प्रॉब्लम है. और कैसे बताऊं,
नहीं, अगर इसमें प्रॉब्लम ये नहीं है कि आई एम श्योर लाइक ये जो इशू है वो ऑब्वियसली इंस्टीट्यूशनल लेवल पे होगा. मैं उसकी बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ. बट अगर आपको वीडियो से पता चला तो और ये आइडिया प्रोप्राइटरी नहीं होगा ना. अ लॉट ऑफ अदर पीपल आल्सो मस्ट बी नोइंग अबाउट दिस आइडिया. ये आइडिया ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको उस खेत में काम करके अगर आपको ये आइडिया आया है तो अलग बात होती. मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ कि अगर वीडियो से पता चला होता, अगर इतनी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है, तो अभी तक किसी और ने उसका सोल्यूशन क्यों नहीं किया, और अगर किया होता तो उसका क्या नतीजा निकला, क्यों काम किया, क्यों काम नहीं किया, ये सब इन्फॉर्मेशन है कि नहीं. मैं अभी नहीं पूछ रहा हूँ आपसे, बट आई एम जस्ट गिविंग यू A way to think. I think there was somebody else who asked about Ankur Warikoo. In fact, this is a part of his online course only on startups, right? On guide to startup or something like that is there for his online course. No, he's only said this. The two important questions to ask is, अगर ये idea इतनी अच्छी है तो और किसी ने अभी तक उसको अप्लाई क्यों नहीं किया, और अगर अप्लाई की हुई है तो उसका नतीजा क्या है, काम किया नहीं किया और क्यों काम नहीं किया. आई थिंक दीज क्वेश्चंस अगर आप इस पे सोचना स्टार्ट करोगे तो शायद आपको आपकी आइडिया रिफाइन होगी. क्योंकि एग्रीटेक एक ऐसा प्रोडक्ट है कि उसका उसका कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट भी बहुत हाई चलता है, उसके बहुत गवर्नमेंट रेगुलेशंस है और उसके बहुत सोशल रिस्ट्रिक्शंस भी है. It is not very, I would say it's not very student friendly. It's not a student friendly industry. It requires like generally experience, because क्योंकि इंडिया का कल्चर वैसा है कि इट्स अ वेरी लार्ज प्रॉब्लम. अगर आप बोलते कि मेरे को एक सोशल ऐप बनाना है तो अलग बात है, दैट्स मोर स्टूडेंट फ्रेंडली. दिस इज नॉट अ स्टूडेंट फ्रेंडली इंडस्ट्री. सो थिंक हार्ड अबाउट इट, इसके बारे में सोचो. और अगर आपको जेन्युइनली लगे कि आपका जो सोल्यूशन है प्रॉब्लम का वो कुछ ऐसा है जो डिफरेंट है और जो अप्लाई हो सकता है या फिर नहीं हुआ है अभी तक, तो फिर उस पर काम करना स्टार्ट करो. और आई थिंक लोगों से बात करो, वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. टॉक टू एवरीबडी इन द इंडस्ट्री. डोंट हाइड योर आइडिया. इट्स रियली नॉट दैट वैल्यूएबल फॉर एनीबडीज आइडिया, इज नॉट दैट वैल्यूएबल. टॉक टू पीपल, उनको पूछो कि उनका क्या एक्सपीरियंस है, और फिर अगर इम्प्लीमेंट होने के बाद अगर उसका रिजल्ट अच्छा दिखे तो वो आइडिया खुद अपने आप स्प्रेड होगी. तो यू डोंट हैव टू वरी अबाउट देन ट्राइंग टू गेट कस्टमर्स आल्सो, इन माय ओपिनियन. सो आई वुड से दैट्स वेयर यू वुड स्टार्ट. बट एग्रीटेक इज नॉट माय फील्ड ऑफ एक्सपर्टीज, सो आई कुडंट गिव यू एनीथिंग मोर देन दैट.
सर मतलब मैं सर ये आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहता हूँ कि सर अगले मतलब 10 से 15 साल के मतलब स्पेक्ट्रम पे सोचिएगा, मतलब कौन सी आपको इंडस्ट्री लगती है कि मतलब जैसे मैं सर अभी मतलब बायोटेक में हूँ सर, IIT KGP में. तो सर मतलब आपको क्या लगता है कि ये मतलब 10 से 15 साल के स्पेक्ट्रम के बीच में कौन सा सेक्टर में बहुत ज्यादा डिसरप्शन कॉज होगा सर, और मतलब उसी बेसिस पे मैं कौन सा मतलब सेक्टर को परस्यू करूँ ढंग से कि जिसमें मैं काबिल टाइप का हो जाऊँ.
यार आप 10 साल का पूछ रहे हो, मेरे को 2 साल का मालूम नहीं है. थिंग्स चेंज एवरी डे यार. इट्स नॉट द राइट वे टू थिंक. अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल से दैट, बट ये बहुत ओल्ड फैशन सोच है कि मतलब 10-15 साल के बाद क्या होने वाला है मुझे ही नहीं मालूम है, किसी को नहीं मालूम है. 1-2 साल में पूरी इंडस्ट्री पूरी चेंज हो जाती है. सो डोंट थिंक लाइक दैट. आई वुड नॉट से थिंक लाइक दैट. रादर देन दैट आई वुड से आस्क योरसेल्फ कि अभी क्या है. दिस इज फ्रॉम आई थिंक जेफ बेजोस, इफ आई एम नॉट मिस्टेकन. ही ऑलवेज सेज दिस क्वेश्चन, राइट? डोंट आस्क अपने आप को ये मत पूछो कि 10 साल के बाद क्या नया होगा. अपने आप को ये पूछो कि अभी ऐसा क्या हो रहा है जो हमेशा होता रहेगा, 10 या 15 या 100 साल तक ऐसा ही होते रहेगा, और उन चीजों पे फोकस करो. अगर वहां से स्टार्ट करोगे तो एटलीस्ट आपका जो आपका मेन फाउंडेशन है वो ऐसे बेडरॉक पे बिल्ड होगा जो हिल नहीं सकता है. अगर मैं आपको बोलूं कि ये इंडस्ट्री एक्चुअली बहुत वैल्यूएबल है और अगले 5-6 साल आप उस पर बहुत काम करो और उस पर बहुत अच्छे हो जाओ, लेकिन 6 साल के बाद कुछ ऐसा चेंज आ गया विच वाज अनप्रेसिडेंटेड. आई मीन लाइक आई थिंक कोविड इज एन एग्जांपल दैट शुक एवरीबॉडी कंप्लीटली, राइट? तो वो एक एग्जांपल है. कुछ भी हो सकता है 6 साल के बाद, फिर आपका 6 साल वेस्ट हो गया ना. सो डोंट आस्क एनीबॉडी दिस क्वेश्चन. आई डोंट हैव एन आंसर एट ऑल, बट अगर कोई आंसर दे तो भी मैं आपको ये बोलूंगा कि ये क्वेश्चन ही मत पूछो, क्योंकि किसी को नहीं मालूम है. वी डोंट हैव द डेटा टू प्रेडिक्ट फॉर द नेक्स्ट 2 years ऑल्सो, फॉरगेट 15 years, राइट? तो चेंज करो क्वेश्चन को कि अभी ऐसा क्या है जो मुझे मालूम है कि आफ्टर 15 years भी ऐसा ही चलते रहेगा, और उस पे काम करना स्टार्ट करो. बिकॉज दैट इज वेयर अ लॉट ऑफ द मनी इज देयर टू मेक, राइट? अ लॉट ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज आर देयर. सो दैट्स व्हाट माय एडवाइस विल बी. अभी बायोटेक का तो मुझे दूर दूर तक कोई आइडिया नहीं है, तो मैं उस पर तो कुछ नहीं बोलूंगा. बट इन जनरल आई वुडंट से स्टार्ट. आई मीन डोंट आस्क लाइक दिस दैट आफ्टर 10-15 years क्या होगा. कोई आपको जवाब नहीं दे सकता इसका. इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल, एटलीस्ट नॉट नाउ. यू आर चेंजिंग टू फास्ट.
ऑल्सो ये भी मत सोचो कि तुम मतलब सपोज 10-15 साल का तुम्हें पता भी चल गया कि हाँ इसमें कुछ करना है, पर क्या पता वो तुम्हारे को फिट ना करे. ये भी तो हो सकता है. तुमने बोल दिया आज को कि हाँ भाई 10-15 साल में IT कंपनी एकदम बूम पे जाएगी और वगैरह, but if you can't develop anything in that, then I mean it's a waste of time for you, right? So maybe instead of figuring out कि 10 to 15 days में क्या change होगा, maybe you should figure out what's better for you and what can you do in more effective. So वो करो.
ठीक है.
Nice question, Rahuli, and well, thank you for this very interesting session, Raunak.
Thank you.
And I hope everyone learned something from it. And all the people who ask questions in the chat by unmuting themselves, a very big thank you. And thank you everyone for attending the event. Before we end, I would like all of you to see what is the Statistic Club about. I'll be sharing my screen and you can see where you can access it on the server. You guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see.
So when you join the server, or if you're on the server, when you open it, you end up around here, up here somewhere in the rules chat or the general chat. If you scroll down, right about here is the Study Streak Club. So here we have the updates and leaderboard channel, and here we put all the updates and reminders for all the sessions and events we have. And we also just released the leaderboard yesterday. All these people sent all this time to Study Streak Club, and you could also be on this leaderboard. And this is the chat where we send reminders and everything, and we talk. It's on cooldown, so you can't very frequently chat here, but it helps. And all these people right here in these all these VCs have been like since the morning have been seeing. So we have a couple of study VCs, then we have the lo-fi VC, and here there's a bot which plays lo-fi music. Then we have code VC and work VC. If you want to join a voice channel, just click on it. If you're on desktop or browser, and you will get this notification right here in this channel. It says that you have been muted. So this is to promote accountability and actually make you study, not just you just sitting in the VC. And so what this will do, it will mute you from the whole server. So you cannot send any messages. But if you want to send any messages, you can just leave the VC you're in, disconnect, and then you're back to the normal. You can access any channel. So that's it. I hope you guys join. The link's in the chat, and click it, join, and let's study together. I guess I'll be waiting in the work VC. I have a lot of work left.
Awesome.
See you guys.
All right. I hope you guys had fun.
Yes, it was very helpful. Thank you, Raunak.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Thank you for having me. I love the Bluelearn community. I think this is my third time I've done a talk for you guys, but you guys are awesome. I love your audience.
Looking forward to more talks.
Thanks for coming.
Sure,
yeah,
man, definitely.
I'm really huge fan of your podcast too. And I really, yeah.
I'm glad. Say hi to Harish for me.
Yes, sure.
Definitely. Chalo. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Have a nice night. Everyone have a nice night. Do lots of work.
Oh, I'll be ending the meeting now.
Yes, do it. Yes.
Before that, Galaxy, I saw your question. Maybe you can ping me on Discord. I can help you with that. Okay.
You can just ping Divyansh at the rate Divyansh and
at the rate Chacha.
Yeah.
I'll end the stream now. Yes.
Great. Bye.